Yaakov, when he calls for Yosef, and he gives Yosef and Menashe and Ephraim a bracha, Vayomer Yisrael al Yosef, Hinei Anochi met, Vayeleki mimachem, Hashem will be with you, V'ani natati lecha Shechem achad al achecha, asher lakachti miyad ha'emori becharbi ubekashti. So some understand Shechem means a portion, meaning that I'm giving you one additional portion of the land of Israel over your other brothers. However, most understand Shechem literally is referring to the city of Shechem. And what he's telling to Yosef is, I'm going to give you Shechem as a gift, asher lakachti miyad ha'emori, that I took from the Emori, b'charbi ubekashti, with my sword and with my bow. A couple questions here that are asked. And one is, what do you mean when Yaakov says, I'm giving you Shechem that I conquered with my sword and my bow? We know that it was Shimon and Levi that conquered Shechem in a miraculous way. In Rav Galinsky's Sefer over here, in his book, so he says over here that by the 6-day war, when the morale in Eretz Yisrael is very, very low, even the morale of the army was like really, really bad, because Al Pitev, according to the natural order of things, the way that all of the Egypt and Jordan and Syria all banded together with the sheer numbers of tanks and infantry that they had, there was like no way that Eretz Yisrael could survive. And yet, after 3 hours, all the planes were knocked out. And then after 6 days, of course, we know what happened after 6 days. Miraculous war. And at the time, Rav Yaakov Edelstein, the Rav of Ramat HaSharon, who just passed away a few years ago, he invited Rav Galinsky to come and to speak to the locals in Ramat HaSharon of the army, and they want him to speak in order to give like hodaya, to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the miraculous victory. And when he spoke there, so he opened up with the words. He says that you think that this is the most amazing war that the Jewish people have ever fought, in terms of the miracle, the sheer miracle. He says, these type of wars have happened before. Take the war against Shechem. You have 2 guys. It wasn't like Hanukkah where you had 13. That was a real miracle, that war as well. And if you look at the pasuk in this week's parsha, so it says over here that Yaakov, it sounds like Yaakov takes credit. Right? Yaakov says, I'm giving you, if anything, he should have given Shechem to Shimon and Levi. Or maybe divide it up, give half of Shechem to Shimon. I mean, they were the ones that conquered Shechem. Why is Yosef being given Shechem? And why is Yaakov acting as if it was his victory? We know that Yaakov was upset that they actually wiped out Shechem. But again, what does it mean over here that he took Shechem? Right? Yaakov says, Asher lakachti becharbi bekashti. So, famous Unkelos that most of you I'm sure have heard. And the Targum Unkelos translates charbi bekashti, right? My sword and my bow, as tzloti uba'uti, as tfilah v'tchina. My davening, my tefillah, and my tchinot, and my supplications, is how I think they translate it in English. What Yaakov is saying is, Yaakov is teaching us a valuable lesson over here. He says, when you look at the actual war of Shimon and Levi, single-handedly winning a miraculous battle against Shechem and all of its inhabitants, Yaakov is saying, you should realize who really was behind that war. It's true that Shimon and Levi are the ones that actually bore arms, and they're the ones that actually fought and killed all the people of Shechem. But where did they get the koyach? Where did they get the power to do that? So Yaakov says, it's from my tefillahs and from my tchinot and from my supplications. So the question, of course, that's asked by the Briskerov, by the Or Sameach, by the Netziv, and they all give the same answer. He says, why is tefillah, which is tzloti, right? We say in Kaddish, titkabel tzloton uva'uton. Those are the 2 types of tefillah that we daven to Hashem. There's tzaluton, there's the regular tefillah, and there's ba'uton. So why is the one referred to as a cherev, and one is referred to as a keshet, as a bow? One is referred to as a sword, one is referred to as a bow. They all say that tzaluti, which is tefillah, is referring to tefillat keva. That's the regular shachris, minchen, marav that we do every day. He says that ba'uti, those are special prayers that a person adds when he's in saras, when he's in trouble, when he needs a Yeshua. Those are added tefillah that come out from your own personal heart. They're not the regimented tefillah. It says, what's the difference between a sword and a bow? A sword is for close hand-to-hand combat, which means that you don't need a lot of force in order to kill because the edge of the sword is so sharp. All you have to do is touch the thing and it slices what it touches. It cuts into what it touches. So you don't need a lot of force in order to strike someone down with a sword. And it's also done very close. He says, however, a person uses a bow and arrow when he wants to kill someone from far away. And for that, we know that the arrow needs the force of the archer pulling back. So he says that's the difference. The difference is that tefillah kfuah, regular tefillah you don't need a lot of kavanah for. Because it's automatic. Now it doesn't mean that we should daven like machines, like robots. That's the challenge of the regimented davening, is to try to muster some kavanah. But you don't need a lot of kavanah. And that's why Chazal say that as long as you have kavanah in the first brach of Shemona Esrei, Yotzei Shemona Esrei, even if your mind wanders in the middle of tefillah, but as long as you had kavanah, the halacha says by the first one, your tefillah is kosher. But when you're offering a special tefillah, it's not regimented by halacha. You're offering a special tefillah because you're in trouble, because you need a Yeshua, that's like a bow. For that, you have to put your entire passion, your entire kavanah and intent into that tefillah, because it's a special tefillah that's not authorized. It's a special tefillah to move HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To move HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a special tefillah needs a lot of kavanah. And that's like the bow, that to the degree that you could pull back the bow and muster the kavanah to make that tefillah more powerful, it'll produce an arrow that will arouse Hashem's rachamim in a much more powerful way. So that is a direct correlation to our effort. When it comes to regular tefillah, you can have minimal effort and it's good enough. So Rav Galinsky says, again, then Shimon and Levi, that were actually picking up the weapons and they were the ones that were vanquishing the people. But where did they get the power from? They got the power from Yaakov Avinu, from both of his tefillahs, from his regular tefillah and from his tchinot, from his bow and arrow type of tefillah, from the intensity of his kavanah. Where else do you find the miraculous war in Tanakh? You find it by Milchemet Midyan, when the Jewish people, after Bilam cursed the Jewish people and he got them to sin with the daughters of Midian, so Hashem says, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the people, it's time to take revenge against what Midian did to us. And he says 3 times in the pasuk, it says, Elef lamateh, Elef lamateh, Elef lamateh. What is that telling me? So Chazal tell us 1,000 from each tribe, 1,000 from each tribe, 1,000 from each tribe, which means 3,000 from each tribe. What were their roles? Because if it broke it up into 1,000, that means it was 3 sets of 1,000. It wasn't 3,000. It was 3 sets of 1,000. The Medrash says 1,000 from each Shevet fought on the front line. 1,000 from each Shevet worked behind the scenes. They were Mishamrim et the Kelim. They were the ones that carried the weapons, made sure the weapons were functioning properly. That was all the gibui that the soldiers needed. You can call that the grills for hope as well, where from those 1,000, Mishamrim et the Kelim means the ones that supplied the food as well. Koach HaMangal. And Elef L'Tfila. And there were 1,000 for the Tfila that were davening. So Galinsky asked the question, imagine, if all of Klal Yisrael is in a state of calamity, is in a state of tsaros, in the middle of a battle, only 1,000 from each tribe davened? Don't you think everyone davened? For sure everyone davened. He said, but there's a difference between how everyone davens when there's a tzara, versus if you appoint 1,000 people per tribe and you say, listen, your job is to really daven. Not to daven like everyone else davens, but your job is that your davening has to be so powerful that it actually is going to help win this war. You're going to give the power to Shimon and Levi. You're going to give the power to the 1,000 soldiers that are fighting per tribe. So of course, all the other Jewish people, they're davening the regular tefillah, sloti, saluti, right? They're doing the regular tefillah. And I have no doubt that all of Klal Yisrael, we all fulfill the idea of tefillah, that everyone is davening in the Shemona Esrei. You have in mind that Hashem should be matzila, should save us, and the war should come to a quick end. No more loss of our soldiers. But their davening is like a sword. There's regular kavanah, maybe even a little bit more kavanah because we're in difficult times. But this idea who's actually davening like a bow and arrow, where they're putting every ounce of their concentration to it, and they feel, I understand the soldiers, of course, feel that the success of the war is literally riding on their shoulders, and it is. It's literally riding on their shoulders. If they perform well, they'll win. If they don't perform well, chas v'shalom, God forbid. But how many people that are sitting at home and davening and learning Torah, how many people really feel that their prayers and their Torah are saving lives, and they're actually learning and davening as if pulling back a bow and arrow? They're not for that, you need intense tefillah. And if we see, unfortunately and tragically, so many precious Jews that are dying every day fighting for the country, that means that obviously the tefillah that Klal Yisrael is doing is not having the effect of a bow and arrow. It might be the tefillah of a cherub, of a sword, but we're not on the front lines davening. We're in Raanana davening, and we're in Yerushalayim davening, and we're davening all over the country and all over the world. For that, we have to muster up a tefillah and also a Talmud Torah, a Torah study of such intensity that it's like a bow and arrow, that we're pulling the bow back so far that arrow will actually go all the way up to Shamayim and arouse Hashem's rachamim. And for that, he says that's why they needed 1,000, because if 1,000 people know that the entire war is riding on their shoulders in terms of how they daven, they're going to daven their hearts out. And Be'ez Hashem, we should also take stock of the fact that if we daven the way those 1,000 davened in Milchemes Midian, and the way Yaakov Avinu davened when Shimon and Levi went to war, so then 2 soldiers are enough to wipe out all of Gaza. And if it's not happening, and we find that there are way too many casualties happening, so then we have to learn from this week's parsha, Becharbi ubekashti. We have to try to make our tefillah more like a keshet, more than a cherub. It should be like a keshet, which means with every ounce of our kavanah and every ounce of our desire and yearning, so that Be'ez Hashem, our tefillah should reach as far as the heavens, and that should actually sway HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring the salvation to Klal Yisrael quickly and speedily, and we should lose no more life. And we should be zoiche to the final redemption through the tefillah, through the efforts of everyone involved, whether it's the soldiers, whether it's Koach HaMangal, whether it's with all the chesed that Klal Yisrael is doing, and certainly with the tefillah of Klal Yisrael, but the tefillah of a bow, not the tefillah of a cherub. That should, Be'ez Hashem, bring the Yeshua that we need. B'mehera b'yameinu, amen.